I was at the IFT First trade show in Chicago last week. I was there to represent a particular freeze dryer manufacturer, TechSource Systems, and I ran into a very interesting individual who came to my booth to sell me logistics. This was a very, very long conversation we had. Stick with me, I'll tell you all about it. By the way, my name is Gene. I am, putting this information out there for everyone to benefit from, right? In one way or another. If you like it, please give me a like. Okay, so a guy stopped by my booth to sell me logistics. His name is Jeremiah Wilson, and I said, Jeremiah, look, you picked a tough business. The fact is that we get people trying to sell us logistics services 3 to 5 times per week. I mean, there's so many companies out there who are trying to sell logistics. What I mean by logistics, in case you don't know, is trucking, shipping and handling and that sort of thing, where you get your product from your factory to some consumer or user's hands. So most people would say, okay, I get it. Thanks very much. And they would walk away. Jeremiah was not that kind of person. Jeremiah engaged me in a long conversation about, well, what is it that you're actually looking for, and what is of value to you when you're selecting logistics companies, and do you have any ones that you actually like to use, and what is it that they like to do, and why do you like them, and what are your main pain points with logistics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? He asked all the questions about what is it that actually drives a customer to choose one logistics company over another. Now, I've been in business to business sales for 30 some years. Right, I sell equipment. From OEMs. I used to work for Edwards way back in the day, selling vacuum equipment, and then I worked for Leibold for quite some time selling vacuum equipment. I also worked for some woodworking machinery companies selling their equipment. So I kind of understand this whole sales to sales thing, although I have to say I had to learn it by myself. Right? Not everyone does. In fact, very few people do over time. But I figured it out. So I understand the B2B sales thing, if you will. And Jeremiah was asking all of the right questions. He was trying to identify what it is that makes some companies able to provide value enough that they'll get your business and keep it. Because in B2B sales, you don't want a sale. You want a customer. You want a lifelong customer if possible. And you want repeated sales. I mean, if you don't get that, then it's almost rarely worth your time. One-off sales are fine if they're big. One-off sales, if they're small, are just a waste of your time if you're in B2B sales. If you're in customer sales, find a different job because AI is coming for you. Look, I mean, consumer sales is really a tough job to be in. So if you really like sales profession, and I think you ought to, because it's the best profession on the planet for many reasons I'll get into in a different video, you should really try to get into B2B sales. Right? The whole dynamic is different. You're not selling to customers that you have to convince to buy a product that they don't want. Or that they just like. You are only selling products to customers who need your product to make more money. Very cut and dry. So Jeremiah was asking me all the right questions, so I recognized in him a salesperson that I frankly would love to have my team someday. Now, I dug a little bit further and I found out that Jeremiah had actually started his own business as an agent, a broker, if you will, for logistics services. He wasn't owning his own trucking company. He was just acting as an agent, which I also found very intriguing. Right now, I act as an agent myself. I don't make freeze dryers, for example. I I leverage a company who makes good freeze dryers, and I act as an agent, if you will, to get those freeze dryers sold to customers. Everyone wins. It's a really high margin business to be in because you don't have as many overheads as you do if you're in manufacturing. Your capital requirements are very low, just travel and marketing and that sort of thing. Well, I found out over the course of our conversation that Jeremiah was a former pro basketball player in Europe. Now, I got the impression that he wasn't the superstar that was the $100 million or $10 million contract kind of pro ball player. But the fact is that it takes a lot. It takes a great deal of dedication and fortitude, grit, determination, work to become a professional athlete. You have to be at the top 1% or less, 0.1% of all people in the world to be a professional athlete. So I understand a little bit about what that takes, right? People think, oh, you have the right physical body. I mean, he's like, I don't know, he's taller than me, 6'4", 6'6", something like that. That's why I'm not surprised that he was a pro ball player. I didn't ask him how tall he is. I'm just ballparking it. The fact is that your physical prowess rarely ever will qualify you to be a professional athlete. The difference between an athlete and a good athlete starts here. The difference between a good athlete and an excellent athlete is always here. And the difference between an excellent athlete and a supreme athlete, which is what you have to be in order to become a professional athlete, there's only one place that it ever happens, right? Yes, you have to have the physical, but that's driven by this, right? Your willpower, the ability to think on the fly, right? Whether that's an individual performance, like say professional tennis or diving, or in a team sport like basketball, where you have to actually engage with other people and there's a lot of variables happening all at the same time. It's very, very, very brain heavy. It's a lot of coordination that happens, right? Not only do you have to marshal your body in a very specific way, but you also have to think ahead and anticipate and analyze a very dynamic and complex situation so fast that you can react rather than strategize while you are on the court. There's no time for strategy on the court. You only have time for tactics. So I understand that Jeremiah was already just knowing his former profession. I already know that he is, top grade material to be in business. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this before in any of my videos, but it's a corollary here, right? So if there are very few professional athletes in the world who make enough money to become rich or even just very comfortable, the fact is that there are millions of business people who are making equal or more money. A handful of professional athletes or performing artists, there's the one-off Taylor Swifts and Manchester orchestras, the successful folks, the Blake Sheltons of the world. There's a handful of those in the world. There's millions of people in business who do it. So if you're trying to figure out a career for yourself, even if you're professional athlete material, ask yourself, why do I want to pursue this career? Is it for the money? Or is it because I love this thing that I'm doing? If you love the thing you're doing, you must go for it. You must. You'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't. If it's for the money, and you have the like the ability to be a top athlete, but you're actually doing it for the money, shift your gears and look for business, because I'm telling you that athletes, that's the high hanging fruit. Business for you, that's the low hanging fruit. Now, as I talked to Jeremiah over the course of must have been an hour, he was standing in the booth there with me. He actually started his logistics brokering business while he was in Europe playing pro ball. Think about that. He actually was actively engaged in a full-time career, and he started a side hustle in the thing that he thought he would really like to do, knowing that his basketball years wouldn't last that long. Let's think about this, by the way, too. I mean, this is another side shoot, if you will. Athletes and artists, right, get, especially athletes, it gets harder and harder for them to maintain their earning power over time, right? Because their body ages and their reflexes soften a little bit, and maybe they don't have the passion for the actual thing as much as they did when they were in college or early out of college. And so the motivation, the drive drops off a little bit. Maybe they get kids. Like, look at what happened to Roger Federer as soon as he had kids, where I was like, well, and you know what? It wasn't very long after that he wasn't winning every tournament anymore. And it's totally natural to me, right? Because your focus changes. You cannot be a world dominating top athlete and have your focus fractured across different parts of your life. So he had this side hustle. Oh, by the way, I didn't finish. Your earning power diminishes as a professional athlete or an artist, but as a business person, it gets better and better and better. It compounds in a positive manner. The longer people are in business, the richer they become. They get rich slowly. I talked about this in a previous video. And it just gets better and better and better. Right? So when Jeremiah was starting up a logistics company in the United States while he was playing ball in Europe, because he wanted to have something to come home to, internally I was just applauding. I was like, wow, if only people understood this principle. Well, that's why I'm making this video about it. Understand that it takes a lot, right, to start up and run a business, to become successful in business. But it doesn't take nearly as much as it takes to become an elite in the world in some, let's call it performing art, or performing some kind of performance, right? Whether that's athletics or dance or song or movie star or whatever. There's people who do it. Granted, they deserve their success because they literally worked their way to the very top. So what did I get out of my conversation with Jeremiah? So many things. So many things. One is hopefully somebody that I can, continue to just sit down and chat with over time, because it was a great conversation. The second thing is, I'd love to have him on my team someday. You never know. Maybe my new business, Cleargrain, will have a place for Jeremiah. That's enticing enough for him to say, oh yeah, okay. Well, or maybe his logistics company will be able to help me in the future when I'm shipping systems all over the country and all over the world for Cleargrain. It literally doesn't matter to me. It is just super gratifying to see somebody who has built their own success, because it is one of the things that I find very highly valuable, not just in people, but in myself. And when you find people that reflect your own values, you tend to like them. You want to be friends, right? So try to be, if you will, like Jeremiah. If you are driven, find something that you can succeed at and drive yourself there. If you say, well, I don't have that driving level of passion, there is a way to develop passion that most people do not know. They have never heard of it. And if you want to know what that is, then I highly suggest that you watch this video here. And I'll see you on the next one.